Remember, you can submit questions anytime during the talk or now by going to fitc.ca/questions. And I'm very excited to introduce the next speaker, Stephen Martell. He's been working at the edge of technology and human experience for 20 years, entirely by accident. I hope you're going to explain that. We'll see. Stephen now leads the innovation at DYAN, a team of Unreal Engine and creative technologists designing interactions in luxury, fashion, and gaming. And you're catching him in the middle of another shift. He's a new dad, 9 weeks old son, I think. So he almost made every slide of the presentation feature a photo of his son. Almost. Is this like a Where's Waldo situation where you have to find your son in the picture? Okay. Please welcome to the stage, Stephen Martell. Have fun, man.
Hello. Let's put this down. Sean did me dirty with the 10:30 or 10:40 slot on the second day of the show, but I'm glad to see everybody's here. I'm Steve Martell. I'm the head of innovation at a studio called DYAN in New York City. We have offices around the world. I'm originally from Nova Scotia. I was born in Whitby. I'm a fellow Canadian, and moved to New York 7 years ago, and have largely found myself in the industry of innovation, or in this, Jared said yesterday, the unique place. And that unique place was entirely because I was relegated to it as a young creative in advertising. Nobody would hand the TV spots over, so I was stuck to banner ads and other digital forms of social media. So it was whatever was left. So today I'm talking about the creating in the age of futurity, and this is a term I stole from a book, which I'll read a quote from in a minute. And I'm going to do this without a podium for the first time. It's good to be back, and thanks to all of you for showing up. So, at DYAN, we make a variety of things. We're a multidisciplinary design studio. We dabble in motion graphics, set design. We have an architectural team. We have a motion graphics team. We do branding and product development. We do creative technology and innovation, which is what I look after, and a number of other things. Live events. We're building Google I/O again this year, and it's sort of a constant challenge and a constant move. And that's really, in summary, what we're establishing as a team. We've been growing crazy. I joined the team right at the brink of COVID, and for a studio entirely of architects at that time, building things like, I think the project at that moment was we were going to help Google build at the Tokyo Olympics. Tokyo Olympics got canceled, and we had to pivot, and we made websites for 3 years. But I'll talk about a few of those today, and some of the other fun stuff we're doing. So this quote, I'm going to read it right off here. This is from Terraform. It's a pretty cool book of short stories. Got some FITC alumni in it. But the idea that an event sounds straight out of science fiction has moved beyond the realm of cliche, and is now something more like an intuitive part of how we process the world. They've left us swimming in a glitched-out layer of futurity that we approach at all times out of necessity with ironic detachment and with a certain degree of empathy. And this sounds super depressing because it's a science fiction book, but it is sort of rooted in this idea that when everything is pretty incredible, nothing is incredible. We can go to the moon, we can go to Mars, we can have driverless cars, we got robots in our house that we can talk to, we get AI moving at the speed of light. So how do you make something in this world of living in the future that stands out, or that can be interesting even for everyone? So I'm going to start with a few foundational truths. This is sort of my foundational truths. They don't need to be yours. It's sort of principles and things that I found within this sort of thesis that we're talking about today. And over this, as I talk, none of the pictures are usually related to the images. I'm just showing you work sneakily while I talk about these truths. So people that don't make things think impossible is normal. And that's the idea of what I was just saying, that if you aren't into creating, you can spend your life's work making something that you think is innovative, present it to an audience, and they'll be like, yeah, that's cool, it's all right. That happens to me every day at DYAN. I think the team's made something super incredible, and our standard is so high, as you're going to see, that when it gets to the broader team, they're like, that's cool, but could it be nicer looking? I know it's a prototype, but could it be a little sharper? But I think that this is a big thing to remember, is that all that care and all that narrative that you have is yours in this, and it's not for, no one else gets to see that part of it. And you got to be able to separate those two things when you're about to present something. It takes your bias out of it. The technology will never be perfect for someone. So everything when we're dealing with the age of emergent technology, the reality is just that we're not going to have everything work all the time. It's the reality. It's technology. You've all experienced it. Sometimes you can't make a phone. I'm pretty sure there's a 20% chance my mic will cut out at some point in this presentation, or the clicker will stop working. It's the same with anything we're building. So the technology will never be perfect for somebody. Change and creation are often found together, and they're really, really difficult. So the beauty about COVID is it forced a rapid change process with a ton of organizations that were stuck, a ton of industries are stuck. We work a lot with fashion. It accelerated fashion's adoption of technology and this wish to be like, to embrace the future and see what they can create. When you have no access to your audience, how do you reach your audience? And we all went through that together, and we were at FITC virtually. But that's just change. But then you want to create in a high change environment, that's even more difficult because the bar that you're working in is constantly changing. So if you had a 1-month timeline 3 years ago to a 6-month to a 1-year timeline, think of the change that just happened in the behaviors of the people around you and what they adopted during that time of sort of being isolated and how normal that became and then how it opened up and now we pretend it never happened. It's like we're all here. But that's, change and creation together. Again, recognizing those scenarios and those truths is a big moment. It's a big way of being able to determine what you're creating is going to be effective. There's a difference between proficient and curious. I used to say this when looking at hiring resumes, is that everyone has the proficient in Excel, but most people can't make a pivot table or something. Then we're going to see a variety of people who are proficient in AI and prompt writing and all this stuff, but it's not it doesn't mean they're good. It doesn't mean they can do it. And you need to recognize within the skills of yourself and the skills in your team or the people that you work with or your clients that you got to separate who's proficient and they're claiming an expertise or who's just curious. They want to know more about that expertise and dive in. Focus on the curious. Always focus on the curious. Nothing kills an incredible idea faster than fear. And you'd think that the response to this is to be courageous, and that's bullshit. It's not about being courageous at all. There's nothing here about courage. We were talking yesterday on a panel about energy, about finding the things. Like it could be a frustration, and a frustration used negatively can have a terrible impact on a project, but frustration can also be a source of energy and motivation. It can be the chip on your shoulder that you need to overcome whatever technical challenge you have. It can also be that you're recognizing it in the person who's paying you to do the work. Nothing kills an incredible idea faster than fear. So do all your things fast. Don't let anyone settle long enough to be fearful of the event. The best projects, the craziest shit that I've ever made, always happens at the speed of light. It comes out 80%, let's say, of what I had in my mind. But then the memory sort of shifts in the history, and the collective everybody remembers it as 100% of what was happening. Converting inspiration to reality requires practice, talent, and I put occasional failure to sound like I occasionally fail, but this is a constant failure. It requires constant failure. They say success is just the reality of a series of failures or something, but converting inspiration to reality, we all have great ideas. Everyone in the room has great ideas. You sit across people every day with good ideas, and not many people are making them. Not many people are able to get the idea that's in their mind and the shape of what it looked like onto the public. You'll notice, I come from the ad background. In advertising, 90% of the way I see the advertising work of my peers is in Ad Week or some publication that is speaking to ourselves. The channels to reach people are so different, and being able to find, I think that practice and having the chops for the gig is the first bit, and you always need to be doing that even in downtime. And then the talent isn't even about yourself, it's about the people that can fill in your talent gaps and recognizing them and embracing that and putting your ego aside. And even letting stronger voices who you might not agree with be a part of the conversation on a more regular basis. And then the failure, if you've seen me talk before, I think my first talk at FITC 7 or 8 years ago was called Making Sausages, the Art of Creative Technology, because no one wants to know how the sausage is made, and it's the afterthought. The last slide of the deck is creative tech, and I had this whole thing, and I just sort of made fun of everything I've ever made and showed all the ways it failed. And I'm not going to do that with you today, because I haven't failed lately, but the idea of just keeping track of those failures and using them as your energy and inspiration should continue. Boredom is the most underestimated state. I mean this for ourselves and for the process. I think we're constantly trying to take in as much information as we can. We're constantly feeling maybe, I'm going to speak about myself. I don't know I've never met half of you. So the insecurity of thinking that you don't know what's coming next. When we're supposed to be building what's impossible or what's futuristic or what's to come, there's a tendency to overstimulate and try to get too much at once. I'm guilty of never sitting still. I'm dying that I can't drink my coffee. It's the only reason I wanted the podium. And then but this idea that even like putting the phone down, turning off social media, doing nothing, sitting there anxious because you have nothing to do will create space in your brain. I think there's a side of everyone's mind where we have our active moment right now. I'm speaking to you, I'm thinking, but I'm thinking subconsciously about what I'm going to say on the next slide, or what happened in the last 24 hours, or the projects that I have to do when I get back. We all have that, and finding out how to use that and recognize it is a big thing. Always be testing and exploring. I did say this about practice, but testing also means not figuring it out, not always building the plane while you're flying. We all kind of get into this requirement. I do it all the time with a couple of guys in the front row here. When we're building a site and we're designing it, but we're kind of thinking about there's a new requirement comes in, or we want to use a new technology, or we're going to build in live streaming. But that testing leads to new happy accidents. You're able to uncover new things that you want to be able to do, new graphic treatments, new fidelity. At Dayon, 3 years ago, we had 0 Unreal Engine developers. We have a team of almost 20 now that are constantly building, and in between projects, we have a board on the wall, and it is everything we agreed as a team that we would create when we didn't have something to do. So if someone shows up and they finish their task early and they did an Niagara particle system and they're pretty pleased with it, they can look at the board and they go, oh, we're going to build that thing that we outlined. And there's no questions asked. In fact, they can pull in other people just as long as there's no other pending project on the board. It's been super effective. We were kind of laughing about it that, it's almost like these outcomes keep happening and you've got to keep up with them. It's like now we got to figure out, we have a whiteboard, we need a place to post it all and have a look. And we rarely are our audience. And this is the thing that took me till I was 40 to figure out, is that you strive to make beautiful stuff because you love it, and you feel that everyone else will do it. And as a technology person, someone who's working in interactive, I love walking up to a wall and moving my hands and seeing it respond to me. I love touching plants and hearing music happen. I love wearing holographic fucking glasses or whatever you want to give me. I will interact with all of it. Most people don't. Most people don't want to figure out if they touch this and you touch this at the same time, the lights get brighter and we all get like a dance party. Most people just want a passive interaction or a one-step moment where they're like, oh yeah, wow, that's fucking amazing. So like this, we rarely are our audience. I know it sounds sort of cliche, but I mean it in the sense of the interaction point. I mean it that we overbuild often. If you've built an augmented reality scavenger hunt, you're guilty of this. Like, I've done 3 of them. They all sucked. It's just the reality. No one's going to run around the town unless you have Pokemon Go IP and be able to like pick up your tokens for your coffee. So, really the audience. Let's keep going. Creating a successful experience. So with those truths in mind and this idea of just constantly pushing yourselves, putting this empathy towards the audience and the people that you work with, and trying to find the best talented individuals to put into place all around you. And that could be one other comment on that. That could be you could be the talent, you could be the artist, and you might just need help in other ways. Like it doesn't mean that you need to pass off what you do to somebody. It just can mean it's recognize what you do. So creating a successful experience, we're going to take you through 3 sort of principles here. Number 1 is the brief. This isn't the creative brief from an ad agency. This is like the brief. This is the request. This is the client. This is whoever is paying you the money, or this is the motivation behind it. And if you've received a brief before, it usually sounds like this. It's like an and but brief. Everybody gets them. So create a wow moment. The wow is tacky and weird because it is always used in a tacky and weird way. When someone asks you to wow them, it's sort of, there's no guidance to what the hell that means. So, wow moment to launch the brand, disrupt the entire internet, but it should feel familiar. Make it feel exclusive, but accessible to everyone. Create social connections, but we'll need to vet, and go on and on and on. There's a contradicting information constantly at the brief. So what do we do in that? We ignore the brief. That's what we do. We always ignore the brief. And I encourage you to do the same. And what I mean by that is that when we think about the truths of what we're doing and the fact that nothing kills ideas faster than fear, is that we need to get ahead of the fear through iteration and through rapid prototyping and through creation. So Fenty came to us with this young woman in the middle, and what's this equation say? Fenty plus Rihanna plus Steve's Midjourney, a website, and this is what it gave me for websites. They wanted us to make a website to launch a new brand with Rihanna called Fenty Skin. And this was happening summer of 2020. And again, did it with the guys here. And it was a real roller coaster. Roller coaster because at Dayon, like I said, we're majority a group of architects, especially in 2020. So we had people building sets and stages, interaction points for Alicia Keys. We're building dinners with fantastic, crazy shit that's going on. Doing LVX was probably like the pinnacle project that we had going into that pandemic. Is a museum of branding, and experiences and luxury. So what did we do first? We were like, okay, we need to do a website launch. We know how to create buildings. We know how to create parties. So we just made a building, and we made a house party for Fenty Skin. The whole premise was, again, the brief was similar. Client was amazing, but the brief was like, hey, we just want, in this time of chaos, we want to take over. And in comes Fenty Skin. Our approach was focused on three things that most people were willing to do, what some people would try, and consider what we would make if it was in real life. And that's really kind of important. What most people are willing to do is this idea that we're not the audience, so I want to build a really crazy thing with an AI bartender, but most people may not want to use the AI bartender, so do we put it in? Is it a feature that's in place? We did put in a bartender. In this room, in this house, a WebGL experience that you move through, you had your bartender, you were given the various drinks that you could serve through ingredients. We had sort of special names, you could have it mixed up. I'm just sort of gonna fire through here because I got a lot. We had a dance floor, and the dance floor is empty, so how does that feel weird? So we added this little gif of like, how does that look? Can you see that? Sort of like ghostly other people dancing as shadows, but it created the sense that you weren't alone. And then we let people join the dance floor. This was sort of a trickery by this guy over here, but it was putting in every 5 seconds, the queue would allow someone to join the dance floor and be there. We had these custom stickers, a live chat. It was a moderation craziness. Every room had its own chat. And as people explored, obviously we need product placement, but we framed it in a spa. So you could go to the dance floor, you can go to the bar, you could be meeting people, and throughout you're chatting and talking, and people are talking about what's going on in each room. And then we would let Rihanna would pull you out of the thing and say, do you want to join a Zoom call? And you would get to meet her, or Lil Nas X, or some of the other broody people. So we had this sort of different levels of engagement. We knew that the brand power of Rihanna would obviously drive like engagement, but if she met one person, they would tweet it, and we would get more people over this 4 to 6 hour event. And then at the end, she did a little, like, this is green screen, so I'm sitting in my apartment in New York. She's in Los Angeles in a small studio. We live streamed her in, placed her in real time for the sort of real-time production online. Again, no crazy, nothing here. I'm saying this like it was super easy. This was probably the most difficult web project I've ever done in my life. And it all sort of paid off. We won a Webby for it. The only thing I'll say, like we were testing and we were working, and we had a lot of people trying to get in all at the same time. We thought we had a moment. The LA and Los Angeles, the internet service provider sort of cut out just about a minute and a half before we went live. It was a bit of a hairy situation, but this thing, we had hundreds of thousands of people. And I'll just sort of play a little, let's see if this will play.
Good. Come on in. What's up? Little Nasdaq. Thank you for showing up. This is a brand that I'm really, really passionate about. I've been working on for a few years, so thank you guys.
All right. Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you. The team killed it. So the next thing's the audience. This is, again, talk about the audience all the time. It's the focus of, I think, what everything we should be doing is how people are taking in the work that we create. And as paid creators, as a paid studio, we get to have real-time validation of that because we put it out, people like it or they don't. Talking to Brendan Hawes last night, it was like, what do you do when you don't know? Is it like recording a sitcom with a laugh track? You're making jokes and you have no idea if people like it and you put it out there. And that's sort of what I think the difference one of the differences in the studio side of building art for an audience who don't know how they're going to receive it and being paid to create art, create an experience for a brand. An audience that I didn't know anything about before joining Dayon was the luxury market primarily. And one of the early projects I got to work on was the launch of a Virgil and Ego collaboration with Louis Vuitton. Sorry, we built a microsite for North America that was based, send an email out to like 300 customers and said, hey, here's the thing. It'll be open for 12 hours. Buy the products that you want. It sold out in 4.5 minutes, 5.5 minutes, all the products. And it's the first time I saw the power of luxury and the spending power of the audience. And what could that be? So it's like, we all want to feel it's attainable, or they want everyone to like, Gen Z being the fastest growing consumers of luxury market. This was a real example of how can we leverage that through COVID, through the pandemic, through a time where we couldn't get people in stores, which is how these brands were built. They're built on bricks and mortar. So I'm going to lead you on a journey here. This is a little shot of some hockey nets, but we got called to a project at an arena. This was, I took a picture of the hockey nets. I don't know why, but we were the first people into the arena since it closed. It was full of flies. The air was stale. It was pretty crazy. I'm going to let you see if you can pick up where this happened. We got put in the green room, and this says, Billy Joel's inventory only with his Captain Morgan rum and his Bacardi. I thought that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I had to take a picture. I took this blurry picture out of fear that people would ridicule me. And then we went out, and we were in MSG, and there it was, like they're laying the floor down for the first time in, 18 months, putting it together, and we're just standing there on the court going like, okay, this is great. I'm not a huge basketball fan, but being in the scale of an arena and being at the floor where all this stuff happens is a pretty incredible feeling. So working with Louis Vuitton, we created this experience for their first collaboration with the NBA. So they had a capsule collection, its first collaboration with the NBA. Our thought was, let's build an event at MSG. No one can go. We're going to capture it in 3D. We're going to shoot it in 360. We're going to make it an online buying experience, and it'll be something that's just a little bit different, something like the store. So we took over the whole place. They gave us all the banners, all the lights, everything. We decaled the floor. We brought in custom basketballs. We set out little merchandising tables. We allowed people to sort of like, again, going into the site, you'd be able to look at the different experiences. So you could go, okay, I'm going over to this side. I want to see what the bag is. I want to see what the shoes are. If it was a ring, it would display up on the like something that was too small. We used broader surfaces to show that stuff. It was pretty. This was probably like the most smooth website. I've gone from like the most difficult website to the most smooth website. This again, both of these were probably done in under 90 days, maybe 60 days. This same thing happened. So we had this Nego Virgil launch. We launched this thing. I'm thinking, okay, we've added friction. We made you like go to an arena. You can't just buy the product. Same thing. Bam. Everything just sold out. It was pretty crazy. Let's just have a quick look here. We got to shoot a free throw, and I missed. The last bit of this, so we've gone over the brief. I see you. We've gone over the audience, and now the last bit to creating something incredible is yourself. And I'm going to take you through. This is going to. And the way I just said that, it sounds like you're the strong point. For me, this project I'm going to take you through is something that I was arm's length involved in. I wanted to be super involved in it, and I'll show you. I'll kind of take you through that story, but it's still something that I think I contributed to, or that as a team we contributed to, or that we were able to step back and watch better, talented people contribute to it and make it, and still feel some part of it, even though it wasn't. I'm able to talk to you about it today because I'm proud of it. The team created this amazing thing, and my personal hours against it were very few. Genesis was launching an electric car, the Genesis brand, and they wanted to have their Saks Fifth Avenue moment. This is Saks in New York on 5th. They go crazy every holiday season, and they do this. They wanted to do that, but they wanted to do it on the High Line in New York. I don't know if you've ever been. Real long rail line. You can walk it forever. In the winter, it's kind of desolate and not a whole lot to do. They wanted this to be like their winter lights moment. So, I was saying iteration. We do tons of it. I have 3 examples of 75 options I think we provided them in that period. So they want to build winter lights. They want us to go crazy. We start immediately getting into renders. We think in renders. We think in 3D for the most part. And we try to present, all of these would have motion versions and Twinmotion or Unreal or C4D. There's just some stills, but bringing people through, trying to show the scale, trying to get the conversation around it. And I was saying this to somebody last night. If round 1 of creative is showing someone 70 options of something, they're going to say yes. They don't know what they said yes to, so you automatically have your first yes. You can move to round 2, you can narrow it down, and you can kind of push it forward like that. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it's really, really remarkable if you can do it. And motion tests, trying to build that immersion, because again, most of the audience don't know what they like. They're not you. They don't know how to express what they want either. So you got to give them the options to be able to give you expression. You have to be able to dig deeper into what is it that's motivating them, or where do you think you're going to be able to get something through. We ended up something close to this. There's many iterations of this top-down view, 200 plus feet. It was going to be like 3,500 linear feet of LED lighting. And so we have all these dots. That's where we're going to hang something. And I went, oh man, this is the perfect time for touch design interaction. People walking through, cameras looking at them. Who cares that it's 6 weeks and it's Christmas holidays and it's December and it's minus 32 outside or whatever. We're going to people are going to be amazed because we're going to track them and show it in these lights. But this is where I had to go okay, who am I doing that for? Who am I pushing this for? And it was just for me. I just wanted to talk about it here. In fact, I wish I was look at what we did. We didn't do it. We killed it right away. It was just this is a nightmare. We have so much to do in the period of time because every project would be really easy without people. I've said this in every talk I've ever done, and I believe it in different ways in different parts of my career. It used to mean that my ideas were the best and everyone else was an idiot, and if they could just get out of the way, I could do it. It doesn't mean that now. It means that the different opinions and the different requirements and different stakeholder requirements are making something challenging. But the people make the project. It's what you remember out of it. It's what the audience gives back to you. It's the whole feedback loop that gives you the hit to do it again. This is not a real picture. I made it big during last night in a rush. But I do like the attempt at making the street light on the right. This was a close to render that we came up with. We were going to hang these large LED columns made of steel reflective metals, and on both sides having mirrors, so we get this sort of infinity effect. We created a ton of different sort of animation moments that could go across the grid and create a light show for people throughout every hour, but then we were sort of giving them like Eiffel Tower moments every 10 minutes. Again, another chance. We were initially okay, we'll do this every hour, but who's going to wait every hour? Let's just hit them every 5 minutes and get more whoa, holy shit, I didn't know that was happening. So let's just show you what it looked like. All right, quick recap. I'm out of time before we want to get some questions and answers, but the brief, find the path to growing your craft so that clients come into you for something they believe only you can make. That's how you ignore the brief. You got to trust that they've asked you to do something because they can't do it themselves. Maybe they're wrong with the brief too. And also that they usually give you a brief in the form of an insight or an outcome, not anything that's actionable to make. It's not a creation tool. It's just like their opinion and their goals. And you can do anything to meet that goal. And then from the audience perspective, there aren't usually, they aren't usually us. They're not coming to conferences looking at innovative stuff. Nuance gets quickly lost. Don't force the effort. It makes people frustrated. And then with you, when you're happy, this is Corey, FITC alumni, but it's also in the book I just quoted earlier. When you're happy, you can fix the broken because happiness is expansive, while rage contracts the world to a red-tinged pinprick. But this idea that everything that we create, we can do in the best mind, you can find joy in any of the mundane tasks that come into that because you know that there's a larger purpose. And I think, and I believe that that's really the reality of how we do the best work we can. I heard a quote by David Lynch yesterday that said, like Van Gogh cut off his ear. But he wasn't painting when he did that. In fact, he probably was nowhere near his paints. He probably never was happier than he was when he was painting. And I think that's true for a lot of us. Learn to spot motivations of feedback. These are always hidden, so dig deeper, like find your ways. Maybe that's with iteration. Maybe that's with just prototyping. Maybe it's showing something ugly. Embrace iteration. Find a way to connect with people that will help you make everything every day. Thank you very much.
Let's do some Q&A. Very nice. You want to get questions in, you can, fitc.ca/questions. QR code up there. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a lot of questions for you. So,
Okay.
one of the first ones that I guess, I'm not sure how sensitive this is, but
Yeah.
You guys do a lot of work. You do kind of across every medium, using every technology.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's pure branding work. Sometimes it's experiential, architectural, it's everything. How hard is it for people, let's say clients and talent, to understand what you do? Is that a problem? Like positioning is the traditional
The positioning
thing.
of the company, yeah. I mean, without a warm-up, I can't even do it myself. You heard me stumble through the first slide. But in reality, I think that note about honing your craft so that people come to you for what they can, I think at Dayon, it's the aesthetic that speaks to the brand, our brand. So people come to us wanting to look that way, wanting something that looks hot.
Yeah.
And that's the term we use all the time in-house. And that can be, Kourtney Kardashian wants to build a wellness brand, and we build Lemmy with her.
Yeah.
Or it could be making the High Line come to life for Genesis, or it can be building a website for, Fenty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just hot.
It is. It really is.
And
it's
that
the
feels like it
hotness.
comes from the luxury in the fashion world, that idea of like hot, because it's kind of X factor kind of thing. It's hard to put a finger on, but
and it's also easy to make the mediocre. Like it's easy to make good.
Yeah.
And there's lots of people that make good well.
Yeah.
It's hard to find the people and the talent and the individuals who can make things incredible.
At that premium level.
Yeah, and that's our hunt. That's what we look for on the team, are people who can help us make incredible things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I worked for a little bit in architecture. I worked for Gensler's digital
cool.
experience design team, whatever. And one of the things I struggled with as a creative was how long those timelines can be on architectural projects. I guess, is that something that is true for you all for certain projects? And then if so, how do you keep people engaged and kind of motivated throughout those long timelines where there's so many twists and turns and things out of your hands and all that?
Yeah, I think it's funny. We have, let's say we run 30 to 40 projects at any given time. Maybe 3 of those will last longer than 6 months.
Okay.
So it's more like, how do we let those, we have the opposite challenge, is how do we keep people engaged in a long-term project when there's always something cool, like always something new.
A shiny object that's, okay.
So it's a the way that we've structured our teams is that no one is assigned to a single thing all the time. There's not like an account that you're given.
Okay.
It's that here's the team that's best for this phase of the project or this portion of the project, and they're going to work on that and sprint through it.
Okay.
Then they're going to hand that off. We have an office in EU, so we have this sort of 24/7 production pipeline, which allows us to do all that iteration I was talking about. But we start from Los Angeles, New York, EU, and back, and it just creates this. I don't want to say it, but like the flywheel.
Yeah.
Flywheel is a cool word everyone's using right now. So we do that. We do the flywheel.
Yeah, flywheel. Cool.
Yeah.
I like the emphasis you put on the audience. I think it's incredibly important if there's any interaction happening, whether it's physical interaction or digital interaction, this idea that you're not creating for us or for yourself, you're creating for this audience. And it seemed to me that you all are pretty good at getting into the psychology of your audience, but how do you do that? Are there tricks or tried and true processes? Do you just rely on the client for all that insight? How do you get into the heads of the people that you think are going to be using this stuff?
So like the sort of tongue-in-cheek, like ignore the brief is as much about trusting yourselves and your team to know what will look great. I mean, so. You mentioned the architecture side for yourself. Like, there is nothing in that process that tells you that someone's going to enjoy the outcome. But your experience and your past failures and your ability to dive in and then your taste is what does it. And I think that's, there's a lot of people, a lot of talent and a lot of great, you can't teach a great attitude, but it's the same with taste. It's really hard to teach taste.
Yes.
And so I have less taste than most of the people on the team, and so I rely on them as the indicator for me. Like if I have an idea and everyone's like, yeah, that's great, man.
Yeah.
That's good.
You
Just put it there,
slide.
just right-click, slide to end. We'll hit it that at the end if we got time. But no, if that's like, it's being okay with that. Like it's recognizing for the good of what you're doing that something is better.
Yeah. Do you find that when trying to understand the audience and match it up with what you know is hot, do you find that the client is usually a help, or is it more of an educational process with the client? Do you have to kind of, in my experience, sometimes clients, they want to participate, they want to collaborate, and they have shitty ideas, really, when it comes to interaction. They don't understand this like no nuance, the things you said on this slide. Do you find that to be true, and kind of how do you talk clients down from that, if so?
I think so. Just stepping back a little bit, when I was 23 going to, I think it was like a marketing conference in Halifax, the CMO from Pepsi did a presentation about the Super Bowl ad they made, and I was 23 in Halifax, working on a local Alliance, Bell stuff, and I was like, fuck you. I don't have that client, that money, that bravery, all that stuff.
Right.
And the reality is that that's just sort of fallacy. Like it's every client is immensely insecure because it's their money they're spending, and it's their job. And then the only thing you have to kind of remind yourself and the team is that what you're making for them, in what we largely do, as a group here, a collective, is we're creating innovative interactive experiences. It's the best project they're working on. Like it's the best thing they'll do this year. So they've got their, whatever launch and their Q1 campaign and their whatever and their CRM, and then they got like a house that's a party. And then, so everyone wants to have their thumbprint on it, and they don't know how to express their involvement.
Okay.
So I find like the education you mentioned is a thing, but and letting them feel like they're part of the wins, that's where, with a lot of options, and some people be very against this, but a lot of options allows them to feel that one of those is theirs. That they guided you into a direction, and it could be true. Sometimes they're really active, sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's us pushing through what we believe to be the best. And so, and then once you finish it, trust begins getting built, and then it becomes way easier. The more you can repeat.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Let's talk a little bit about technology. I was struck by, I think you said something like just a couple years ago you didn't really have many Unreal developers, and now you said 20, I think?
Yeah, but 18 or 20. Yeah.
That's amazing, and that's a testament to Unreal's growth and the market share they've been stealing from Unity, I think. But I'm kind of curious, like, obviously that's a great pipeline for real time and all sorts of AR and VR experiences. Where do you kind of see things heading? I mean, it seems like the promise of a lot of what we know, the hardware that's going to be coming out soon, right? You know, Quest 3 is imminent. Apple's going to do their mixed reality thing.
Yeah.
And so it seems like there's something on the horizon. I don't know what it is. What do you think that's going to be, and is it going to affect how you all work, you know, kind of going forward?
This is a big one, man. Like, I think that there's still going to be a very hard time finding adoption in headset hardware. I don't think anyone here is going to be jumping at it to work full time. If Apple released a headset that allowed me to have like all the monitors and my one monitor and type, like that would be pretty incredible. But as a use case for the work that the output, I don't believe it's an immediate thing. I think that, you know, I started in augmented reality in 2012. Built the first Avengers movie AR app, and at that time it was like a little renaissance, and they're like, you know, headsets will change the world.
Yeah.
No, it just died, and then built a headset with Acura a few years later, made people drive around in a car while wearing an AR headset, and that was cool, but it still died. So I'm not sure when that tilts over, but there's just too many tools, and everything's moving quickly, and it's using all of them is wonderful, but I don't know when that one
It comes
fits.
back to that audience thing again,
Yeah.
right? They're really going to want to deal with, you know, these giant things.
Like, I love VR.
Yeah.
I think it's cool as shit.
Yeah.
I think the most of the work that we do is an escape for the people who attend it. So if we could, and this is an escape from the office, or this is an escape, like the opportunity to re-engage with people that we care about. Finding ways to do that in virtual environments is like the Pandora's box. Like we don't know. We haven't figured that out yet.
Okay.
I don't think anyone has, really.
That's honest. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. Yeah, cool. Okay, let me make sure that I'm not missing anything here. No, we're good. Thank you so much, Stephen. I really appreciate it. All right, let's have a round of applause for Stephen. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll have a little break before the next talk, which is going to be Joshua Davis. That's a special one. Go over to the conversation room if you haven't. Check out Loblaw Digital's booth. See if they have any drink tickets for you. And we'll see you back here about 15, 20 minutes. It'll be 11:40 when we start again, okay? Thank you very much.